It's not really an understatement to say that the original Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was well beloved by everyone, and Black Flag Resynced aims to deliver the same swashbuckling pirate experience that we all fell in love with 13 years ago. Now I enjoyed my time with this remake, however there are some glaring flaws that deserve being criticized. Now visually, I would say the game reimagines the Caribbean beautifully. Ubisoft always finds a way to outdo themselves in terms of graphics and the open world design. The vibrant Caribbean of the current gen easily puts the original game and also Shadows to shame. The underwater sections especially look ethereal, and the fact that you can dive inside anywhere is a huge plus. I mean, even the character models are an upgrade from Shadows, especially Edward and his robes look so detailed that it looks exactly like the CG trailer we saw back in the day. It's crazy how far we have come in terms of technology and graphics. Yet I do think that the character models do look a little too clean, especially for pirates. I think the character models in Resynced lack that rugged and rough in the seas look that the original had. Like it low-key feels like the characters are doused in too much makeup. I don't know if this is what other people feel too, but it does kinda take away from the immersion of the game a bit. I also feel that the new HUD from Shadows looks pretty bad. It just doesn't seem to fit the vibe of the game. Like I miss the deep green animus loading screens with the cool waves. It just added to the overall pirate theme a lot more. The new HUD just looks flat and doesn't fit in at all. I mean, they could have tweaked it a little bit from Shadows so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. One of the aspects that was heavily reworked in Resynced was the combat, since it wasn't really the strongest feature in the original, and I'm happy to say that this rework makes the combat far more of an enjoyable experience. This is an evolution of the parry counter kill system, where instead of chaining multiple kills like it's no one's business, you can only do it with a perfectly timed parry, and even then you can at best chain 2 kills together. Especially with the higher level guards, you need to break their defense first in order to initiate a takedown, which can be done via a gunshot. There's also a new guard type added. Also, the inclusion of the rope dart early in the game is a much needed change. You have more time to get familiar with it and use it in combat and also in stealth. The only part that is a bit of a letdown for me is the removal of hand-to-hand and hidden blade combat from the game. It's a really bizarre decision because under certain scenarios like the tavern fights you can do them, but not outside of them, as Edward switches back to his default dual swords. What's also a shame is that you can only really use the dual swords as a weapon type in this game, which really restricts the opportunities to experiment more with combat. Like in the original, you had quite a bit of variety of weapons from axes to muskets, but with Resynced, just using the dual swords throughout the game can get pretty dull and boring, especially by the time you got to the end game. Also, why the fuck can you sword fight with animals in this game? Like man, it just looks goofy and silly to look at. Stealth is also slightly changed, taking things from Shadows, yet it feels like such a downgrade from Shadows in my opinion. The reason I'm saying this is because the game doesn't really punish you harshly for failure like Shadows does. You can pretty much abuse the stealth and kill as many guards as possible from the stalking zones before they even notice you're there. Even at the hardest difficulty this was the case. The detection system is also pretty inconsistent. Sometimes the guards develop some sort of supervision and spot you from so far away. It especially is irritating when there's an important dialogue between two characters which just breaks the immersion. Another thing that I hate that Shadows introduced was that once your target spots you, no matter where you are, you'll always be in conflict. You can't lose them and try again. It's frustrating. You pretty much have to start all over again. It also doesn't help that the targets that you're sent to kill also have some sort of super fucking vision, spotting you out of nowhere. Also, the animations, specifically when you're doing a double assassination, are very choppy and jarring to look at, as the camera angle suddenly changes. I'm a bit disappointed with this stealth to be honest, especially since it takes so many elements from Shadows, yet removes any sense of difficulty or challenge from it. I mean, I still think it's better than the original game, but I was expecting more coming from Shadows. As for social stealth, it's there, yet I never really used it all that much. Even the original had the same problem, and with a lot of tailing missions removed from the game, there's less opportunities to engage with it, besides 2 of the assassinations at the end game. It isn't really anything different from Mirage. Parkour is a more polished and updated version of the Mirage and Shadows system. It's a lot more responsive and the world design, especially with the city of Havana, is great to assist it. However, it feels like Edward moves a little too fast at times. This still isn't the best that this system could be, however. In order to make the parkour have a lot more player input and control, we need to add extra button inputs. As you know, in the early AC games you can toggle between multiple speeds. You can go from walk to jog to a sprint. However, from AC3 onwards they reduced toggling between a walk and a full-on sprint. And since Origins, you just have the thumbstick to toggle between speeds, which is based on how hard you're pushing the thumbstick. So it's very easy to lose momentum and speed whilst you're doing parkour over roofs and climbing things, as Edward slows down to a jog after climbing a certain obstacle. In the older games, I mean even in the original game, the pace of the parkour always felt fast and consistent. However, this new system doesn't really allow for that due to your speed controls being restricted to one button. I don't know if Hexe is even going to use this system or not, but I have a feeling it will. Because in order for the player to have more control over the speed of parkour, multiple button inputs need to be added. And I'm not sure how Ubisoft can do that, because that means redesigning the whole controller button layout for future games. And the current players are already used to this current button scheme, that Ubisoft would feel scared to make them adapt to a new system, as they don't want to lose their current fan base. Which is why I don't think it will ever happen. Liu Kei explains this a lot better in my opinion. You should go check out his video. Despite these problems, I could still have fun with this system. It isn't perfect, but it's a damn sight better than the Origins to Valhalla parkour system. Naval combat is more or less the same and enjoyable. They added 2 new moves which definitely make it a more fun experience. One being Perfect Brace and the other being Ram Dash. We also get a sick new mortar weapon which I'm pretty sure they took from Skull and Bones. I don't really want to go in detail over how Naval works as it's really similar to the original. You can go check out my video on Black Flag if you really want to. I appreciate that it's a lot more challenging, especially in the beginning, and even taking down forts isn't as easy as the original game. So the added challenge is much more welcome as it makes the gameplay far more engaging. I have to say though that there are some weird sound issues I encountered with this game. I'm specifically talking about the audio mixing. Like especially when you're having a dialogue exchange with a character on the ship. I don't know why the audio sounds muffled out unless and until you're pointing the camera at the character Edward is talking to. I experienced this whilst doing the mission with Blackbeard at the beginning. But I think this seems to be fixed now with patches since I haven't really experienced anything of that sort after that. One minor thing they took away which upsets me is that when you get aboard the ship and ready to take that wheel in the original, the crew cheered you on and that really gets your morale up and gets you going for more. In Resynced, it's just nothing. It feels that the crew members are devoid of any life and have no character whatsoever, which is pretty upsetting. Also, there isn't any music most of the time when you're boarding the ship, which kinda sucks because the soundtrack from Brian Tyler, especially doing boarding a ship, really give you that swashbuckling pirate adventure experience. But it barely plays now. I don't know if this is a glitch or not, but it's really weird if it's not, and they removed it intentionally. Now I want to talk about the new content added to this game. First of all, there are the new officers and their quest lines that are added to this game. Now the officer quests are fine in terms of side content, though narrative wise, it obviously doesn't match up to the original game. The added characters do seem a bit more memorable than most recent AC side characters, but then again, it's not really a high bar to cross. The one piece of side content that I do think is pretty good is the Captain Steed Bonnet quest, as we never really find out what happened with him after we left him in the original. And man, that I got damn emotional when we find out about his ultimate fate in this last letter. It also adds to the narrative, how Edward inspired him to pursue a life of adventure and chasing pleasure, yet unfortunately that led to his demise, which is subtle mirroring for Edward in a way. This will eventually become him if he continues on his course. Also, the added Caroline and Edward scene is so good. It's so heartwarming and wholesome, and it adds another dimension to Edward's character. His insecurity to not be able to provide for his family. It's so well written and performed. And I don't know why the rest of the added scenes aren't really up to the same mark. They feel like Shadows level cutscenes because they don't really use motion capture, and Edward hits that Cassandra pose, if you know what I mean, which feels so off character. I mean, they have patched it up now, but it still doesn't fix the awful scene and dialogue. Now there are some weird narrative choices that they made, like in some parts they just removed music for some reason, like the intro when you're sailing out with Steed at the beginning, though I do like that they changed the mission design up by completely removing tailing or making it optional, which gives more sense of player agency and control. But some choices to me are still weird. It's also a shame that they couldn't bring back Roger Craig Smith for that infamous Italian diplomat cameo. Even the Do Not Go Gently cutscene feels like a bit of a downgrade compared to the original, to be very honest. I don't know, but something just feels off about it. Though I do like that Mary Reed and Anne Bonny do have more of a presence in the main campaign. Now I'm going to talk about the worst addition to the game in my opinion. This is the extra added epilogue chapter that involves hunting down Blackbeard's killer, Lieutenant Maynard. And I'm not gonna lie, I hate the way that this story arc is integrated to the main game. Like, these missions become available during the late game at a point where Edward already has had his character development. But it's so weird that Edward just defaults back to his old personality, chasing his selfish desire for wealth. It also completely undoes whatever character development he has had throughout the course of the whole game. It's so bizarre. And I also don't like how the writing and dialogue is so corny. Like I'm watching an MCU movie. This has become a huge problem with writing for modern games. Even popular games such as the likes of God of War Ragnarok suffer from this exact problem. It just doesn't fit the tone of the game at all. The way Edward reacts, behaves and speaks, it's so bizarre. Also, Edward is just so dumb during this arc as well. Like he falls for the same trick twice. I don't know why they just dumbed him down and kinda ruined his character in these missions. Also, the ending to me felt really disappointing. It lacks whatever nuance the writing had in the original game by making everything so on the nose. This is by far the worst addition to the remake in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed playing through the missions, but narratively it feels so off. You can definitely tell which parts of the game were added on and which weren't, just due to the stark differences in quality. I don't know why, but to me the added dialogue just seems off. There's a lot of times where Edward makes silly one-liners, God, I hate how every game now has to follow this MCU template. There is a really good video on it that you must watch. It really articulates my feelings towards this issue. Now look, I had a fun time playing this game despite its problems, and Resync does a good job at keeping the soul of the original game alive. Yet, I do think that some creative choices in the game do actively harm it. The new added content especially makes it even more clear that this isn't the work of the same Ubisoft that we used to know. It's sad to see that this game pretty much sums up what Ubisoft was like and what they are now. I'm tired of Ubisoft not doing mocap cutscenes and instead wasting shit ton of money on making skins to sell bloody microtransactions. Because I don't know how on earth can we get cutscenes of this quality in a big budget AAA game. So to me, Black Flag Resynced is partially successful as a remake because it keeps the old parts and sometimes even enhances them, yet the new content really takes you out of that experience. I honestly think they shouldn't have bothered adding content at all if they were gonna drop the ball with the quality. Sadly, this is another one of those Ubisoft titles that you know is good, but not great or amazing, which is unfortunate considering that the original Black Flag was one of my favorite games of all time. So I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on this game, and please let me know what you feel about this game compared to the original. I would love to hear your thoughts. Anyways, I hope you guys have a nice day. Hit a like and subscribe to show your love and appreciation, and I'll see you guys soon in the near future.